Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or questions, and please stay with us. Arena Buffalo News is coming up next.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or even turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, July the 14th. Your readers today are Lori and
Lita.
Let's look at the weather. Partly sunny, windy, very warm today with a high of 88. Breezy in the evening, otherwise mainly clear, and humid tonight. Not a good sleeping night. Low of 73. Partly sunny and remaining very warm tomorrow. High of 80. Thursday, partly cloudy, partly sunny, and less humid. Breezy in the afternoon. Friday, you can expect afternoon thunderstorm, high of 83, low of 66. Shower and thunderstorms on Saturday, high of 76, low of 64. But Sunday's going to be pleasant with some sun, high of 78, low of 63. That'll be great for the final sky ride that's happening on Sunday. If you are not warm enough, you can go to Buffalo, South Dakota, 102. And if you want to be cooler, Angel Fire, New Mexico, 37 degrees. I need to tell you that the air quality index has gone from good to moderate. The sun sets tonight at 8:53 p.m. And the lake temperatures, Lake Erie, 74 water temperature. Lake Ontario, 69 water temperature. And the Niagara River is clear with a water temperature of 73.
Not bad, not
To you,
bad.
Rita.
I think Old Homes Day is this weekend too in Williamsville.
Oh, very good.
So on the front page, we'll start with healthcare cuts give the Democrats powerful attack line for midterms. Shannon Gooden has voted Republican her entire life, including for Donald Trump 3 times. But the looming closure of the rural Iowa health clinic where she works has her questioning that loyalty ahead of November's midterm elections. Her unease over medical costs and access represents an opportunity for Democrats. In Iowa and other battleground states, Democrats are campaigning against Republican-backed cuts to Medicaid, the health program for low-income Americans, and rising costs, while Republicans argue their policies will curb waste and lower expenses. I was raised a Republican and I've always voted Republican, but it's gotten to the point now, more what are you doing, or what are you going to do for us, said Gooden, who's 56 and a receptionist at River Hills Community Health Center in Centerville, just outside of Des Moines, Iowa. Really not just outside, it's 2 hours away, because you know that's the way it is in Iowa. Just kidding. While River Hills and Centerville has not publicly attributed its planned closure on July 31st to any action by the Trump administration, Gooden sees it as part of a broader rollback of support for low-income Americans. Gooden represents what Democrats hope is a broader trend, healthcare reemerging as a potential election issue, even as political attention has centered on gasoline prices and conflicts with Iran. Her frustrations echo findings from a Reuters Ipsos opinion poll last month that found healthcare was the cost voters most want Congress to address, ahead of housing, food, and gas. If voters like Gooden follow through in November, Democrats believe health care could help them reclaim the House of Representatives from Trump's Republican Party. In Iowa, they hope the issue will help deliver at least 2 House seats and boost Josh Turek, whose campaign for an open Senate seat is key to the party's longer shot path to winning the chamber. A major flashpoint is $1 trillion in Republican-backed Medicaid cuts over a decade. Though they do not take effect until 2027, opponents are already tying them to clinic closures, which providers say are also driven by staffing shortages, low reimbursement rates, and fewer people in the areas they serve. Turek says healthcare is one of the few issues on which voters broadly agree the system is failing Americans, who face high out-of-pocket costs and risk of losing coverage with their jobs. His first TV ad, released in April, argues the Medicaid cuts are an attack on working-class families. It doesn't matter if I'm in front of a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. What I hear from Iowans is that the healthcare system is fundamentally broke, Turek said in an interview. His Republican opponent, U.S. Representative Ashley Hinson, voted for the Medicaid cuts, arguing that the program is rife with waste and abuse. But according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, roughly 3/4 of improper payments stem from insufficient documentation, not fraud. Hinson declined an interview request. Her campaign spokesperson, Billy First, said in a statement that Hinson would keep working to expand access and lower costs for Iowa families. She has a supporter in Centerville florist Amy Tubbs, who backs the bill's Medicaid work requirements. If you're able-bodied, an adult, and you can go get a job and work, you should be working and not getting free medical care, she said. Iowa is not alone in focusing on health care. Officials at House Majority PAC, or the House Majority PAC, the leading outside group backing House Democrats, and its Senate counterpart, said they are putting health care at the heart of their affordability message. They are targeting battleground states and district hits by Medicaid cuts and last year's expiration of subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, the 2010 law that expanded health care coverage known as Obamacare. Their focuses would include Texas, California's 22nd congressional district, and Iowa's 1st and 3rd. It's that double issue in one which we can show that Republicans don't have a plan to lower your costs, they don't have a plan to make health care affordable, and they own why it's unaffordable now, said Lauren French. Republicans say their health care agenda is focused on lowering costs through market reforms, price transparency, and efforts to reduce drug prices, including the administration's push to cap prescription drugs at the lowest prices paid in other developed countries. Rather than engage Democrats head-on over health care, Republican super PACs and allied groups are expected to focus on tax breaks on tips and other pocketbook benefits in the tax and spending laws signed by Trump a year ago, while highlighting the administration's efforts to lower drug prices and other costs. Hinson and other Republicans representing rural areas have defended the Medicaid cuts by pointing to the $50 billion Rural Health Care Fund enactment alongside the cuts, with funds earmarked for investments in telehealth and other services. Critics counter that the fund will offset a fraction of the projected losses. Turek, who was born with a spina bifida and uses a wheelchair, often draws on his experience navigating the healthcare system to talk about his agenda. He backs a public option, part of a broader Democratic push to expand health insurance coverages through government support, though he has yet to spell out the proposal in detail. Turek and fellow Democrats also want to reverse cuts to Obamacare and Medicaid they say are eroding care. 2 in 5 Iowans who rely on Medicaid in rural communities are already seeing the impact of these cuts, with rural health care and hospitals closing, he said during a roundtable event. Iowa is fertile ground for the debate over access and costs. KFF, a health policy group, estimates Iowa will lose about $9 billion in federal Medicaid funding over the next decade. Over the past year, 7 Iowa clinics and hospitals have announced closures or service cuts, with some citing the expected loss of Medicaid revenue as a factor. Located in a strip mall in Centerville, a former coal mining town where poverty is nearly twice the state average, River Hills has long served as a lifeline for local residents. More than half its patients rely on Medicaid, according to Gooden, and some walk to appointments because they do not own a car. The exact cause of the closure remains unclear. River Hills has cited broader financial pressures facing rural health care providers and did not respond to a request for further comment. For Bev Loeffler, a 72-year-old longtime Republican, the explanation matters less than the outcome. She sees the closure and the Medicaid cuts as part of a broader erosion of health care access for vulnerable Americans and worries about her great-grandson who relies on Medicaid to manage diabetes. They are targeting the people that need it most, the very poor, she said, and I would vote Democrat now.
And Ukraine loses an ally in Washington with the death of Graham. The death of Senator Lindsey Graham leaves key U.S. allies like Ukraine, which have at times struggled to influence the Trump administration, without one of their most effective conduits to the White House. In the 3 days before he died, the Southern Carolina senator met Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, strolled through a drone production factory in Ukraine, and sealed an agreement with senators to advance a Russia sanctions bill. It was the South Carolina Republicans' 10th visit to the country since Russia launched a full-scale invasion back in 2022, and he had spent much of Donald Trump's second term trying to sustain U.S. support for Ukraine's defense against a Russian invasion, despite the president's testy relationship with Zelensky. Before that, Graham was at the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, where he worked to smooth out tensions between the long-standing military alliance and Trump. Now, Ukraine and other U.S. allies will have to find another advocate, which won't be easy. Graham had honed a unique skill set, combining a close relationship to Trump, the ability to work with Senate Democrats, and deep ties with foreign leaders. Even after Trump won a second term, in part by campaigning to end U.S. involvement in foreign wars, Graham remained a staunch proponent of interventionist policies, most notably helping push for Trump to join Israel in a war with Iran. And despite Trump's frustration that he couldn't deliver on his campaign promise to end the war in Ukraine on day one, Graham has been an important asset for Zelensky, who has struggled to maintain a steady relationship with the president. In Kiev, Graham's death was seen as a big loss of a rare Republican who sincerely supported Ukraine and did his best to help the country, according to a person familiar with the matter. Ukraine lost a true friend, and America lost one of its finest sons. Kirilo Budanov, the head of Zelensky's office, wrote on social media, "The memory of friends is measured not by words but by deeds. Lindsey Graham was a true friend of Ukraine because of what he did." Graham's death comes as Ukraine is urging allies, including the U.S., to provide more Patriot missiles to defend against increasingly deadly Russian ballistic strikes. While Trump last week said he will grant Kiev license to manufacture the missiles, getting production up and running won't be quick or easy, requiring continued engagement with the president. Vladimir Fisenko, head of the Penta Research Institute in Kiev, said that Graham played an important role as one of Ukraine's lobbyists in Trump's circle, even if he didn't always prevail. Trump did not always listen to Graham, as he was not as influential as, for example, Envoy Witkoff, he said, referring to Trump's special envoy for peace talks, Steve Witkoff. Now the problem for us, are there other players like Graham with powerful positions in the Senate and access to Trump? European nations viewed Graham as a key White House influencer, a European diplomat said, to not only support Ukraine, but punish Russia. He was also seen as one of a few people among senior Republicans who took an active and informed interest in foreign affairs, according to a person familiar with the European leaders' thinking. Graham was a regular at global gatherings, both public and private, offering interpretations of U.S. administration policy to audiences and officials abroad. At the Munich Security Conference, which was in February of 25, with Senator Jean Shaheen from New Hampshire and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Graham's phone rang while they were seated on stage. "Let's see if this is Trump," Graham said to a round of laughter. "He would have gladly talked, I'm sure," he said, after clicking the call away. Graham went on to affirm the value of NATO. "The alliance has stood the test of time, and it works," he told the audience, while explaining why Trump is pressing European allies to step up defense spending. "We need others in the Senate to step up and fill his shoes regarding the Ukraine," said Representative Don Bacon, a Nebraska Republican and vocal backer of Ukraine. In an interview Sunday on CNN, Trump spoke about Graham's influence, saying, "I wanted to see the war with Ukraine end very quickly. I think he was more into keeping it going," Trump added. "Frankly, he was very militant having to do with that." Senator Tim Scott, a fellow South Carolina Republican, recalled Graham's unique advocacy style. "Here's what we need to remember about Lindsey and Ukraine. He wanted to save as many Ukrainian lives as possible because he knew what we all know, that Russia was the aggressor, that Russia was attempting through Putin to create Ukrainian genocide. And Lindsey Graham wanted to stand in the gap and say, 'Hades, no, not on my watch,'" Scott said on Fox News Sunday. and he encouraged President Trump to be as invested as possible. Scott added, "As you know, I know Lindsey Graham was never kind and gentle about the priorities he had. He was loud and obvious and sometimes even obnoxious because he understood that he had the power of a microphone to make a difference, not for himself, but for others." On Friday, a bipartisan group of senators, including Graham, announced that Trump had agreed to move forward with new Russia sanctions legislation. They did not detail the updates to the long-stalled legislation, but said they expected it to roll out soon. Following Graham's death, several Democratic senators called for passing the Russian sanctions bill quickly. Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut said it would be a fitting tribute to Graham. "I will forever remember our last lengthy conversation this weekend, when he exulted at reaching an agreement on our Russian sanction bill, and he said, 'This is a big deal. We all did good,'" Blumenthal said in a statement.
And that is so true. He's going to be missed for sure. And following up on that, the time, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 16 minutes past the hour. And South Carolina governor has appointed Graham's sister to his Senate seat. Republican South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster on Monday appointed the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham to fill his vacant Senate seat until the first week in January. Darlene Graham Norden, whom President Trump named as his preferred choice for the post, is expected to be sworn in as early as this week, allowing Majority Leader John Thune to maintain Republican 53-47 majority in the Senate. Senator Graham died late on Saturday, and his sudden death shortly after returning to Washington from a trip to Ukraine, coupled with the ongoing absence of Senator Mitch McConnell, is weighing on Congress as it returns from its 4th of July holiday break on Monday to grapple with key defense and national security legislation during a compressed 4-week summer work period. The Senate opened on Monday with Graham's desk draped in black with a vase holding white flowers atop it. With McConnell out indefinitely due to illness and Graham's seat temporarily empty, the Republican caucus is down 2 members, effectively leaving it with a minimum 51-seat majority that could create hurdles for Thune as he seeks to pass major defense policy legislation and a new Russia sanctions bill. Also pending are a lapsed foreign surveillance program and Senate consideration of Trump's nominees, including Todd Blanche as U.S. Attorney General. McMaster announced his choice of Norden at a press conference in Columbia, the capital of South Carolina, and she will fill out her brother's term, which ends the first week of January when a new Congress will be sworn in. South Carolina's Republican Party will hold a special primary election on the 11th of August with a runoff on the 25th if no candidate wins a majority. However, whoever captures the party nomination will face Democrat Andy Andrews in the 3rd of November general election. It was unclear whether Norden would attempt to join the race for a 6-year term. Republican Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina has also backed Norden for the temporary Senate seat. Graham sat on the Senate Appropriations Committee and McConnell remains a member. Without them, the struggle already underway to reach agreement on across-the-border government funding could become even more arduous. Congress and Trump face a September 30th deadline to keep federal agencies operating for 12 more months. Graham died from a heart ailment late on Saturday, his office said. McConnell, an 84-year-old Kentucky Republican who has spent half his life in Congress, also chairs the Senate Rules Committee and has been absent since mid-June. In D.C., Office of the Chief Medical Examiner is carrying out extensive testing to determine whether there were contributing factors to a preliminary finding that the senator's cause of death was a tear in his aorta. The office normally has up to 90 days to make its determinations. In a statement to constituents on Sunday, McConnell said he was hospitalized after a fall and later developed mild pneumonia but has moved to a rehab center and remains determined to return to the Senate. "I'll keep working hard to get back on the Senate floor as soon as possible," McConnell said, without providing a timeline for his return. As chair of the Senate Budget Committee, Graham sought a new budget package to circumvent opposition from Democrats and pass Republican priorities such as additional defense spending, new tax cuts, and some Trump-backed voter restrictions. Graham and McConnell were also key to Republican hopes of reviving a lapsed Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act program as lawmakers scrutinized Trump's decision to appoint Bill Pulte, an ally with no intelligence background, as acting head of national intelligence. Their ability to advance legislation renewing FISA authority will depend on Trump's DNI nominee, Jay Clayton, who is due for a confirmation hearing this week as Pulte's replacement. The Senate Judiciary Committee's loss of Graham also could impact the confirmation of Blanche, who raised hackles among Republicans and Democrats this year as acting Attorney General by promoting a now defunct $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund that critics say could have benefited Trump allies. McConnell's absence from chairing the Rules Committee could create a partisan deadlock on the panel just days after Trump fired the last 3 members of the Election Assistance Commission in the run-up to the November midterm elections. The Rules Committee would handle any new Trump nominations for the independent body that assists election administration officials nationwide. But with McConnell absent, the 17-member panel would consist of 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats, potentially keeping it from processing nominees. Trump and his allies have criticized McConnell several times since the president returned to office. McConnell has opposed Trump's tariff policies and some of his cabinet picks, as well as his effort to eliminate the Senate filibuster. As the Rules Panel chairman, he has also declined to advance Trump's voter ID bill known as the Save America Act. The longest-serving party leader in Senate history, McConnell has struggled publicly with health issues in recent years, including freezing up while speaking to reporters in 2023, and was hospitalized for 8 days in February with flu-like symptoms.
And in my view, Lori Duvall Jackson has had some interesting avian encounters. Wildlife adventures in the suburbs. I was eating lunch at the kitchen table when at exactly 1:24 on a recent Friday afternoon, a turkey crashed into my living room window. Lest anyone doubt the veracity of this statement, I have my neighbor's doorbell cam footage that recorded the entire bizarre event. This wasn't even the first bird-centric incident at our house. In a previous episode many years ago, my late husband took our sons to a movie, and I stayed home to take a nap. No sooner had I laid down than I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping, emanating from the kitchen area. Distinctly, I remember it was in the bleak December because my family had gone to see the Christmas movie Home Alone. Ironically, I stayed behind, preferring as a young mother to actually experience the movie title. When I finally screwed up the courage to tiptoe out of my room and peer around the corner, I saw something moving in the sink, followed by clanking noises.
No.
I had discarded a plate and fork there with some pie crust on it, and somehow a bird had made its way into the house and discovered it. I briefly considered leaving and getting a hotel room, but nap time was doomed, and I set about dealing with that intruder. I eventually succeeded in trapping the bird in a closet using a broom. When my family returned, I was waiting with a bedsheet and crossly instructed my husband to toss it on the bird when I opened the closet. I pulled the door open, the bird flew out, and my husband shrieked, dropped the sheet. Eventually, we were able to catch and release that terrified creature. Her husband or the bird, not sure. Cut to the present day, and I'm once again home alone. I'm eating, which means I'm also reading, and do not see the huge figure fly past the kitchen window. Our cockapoo is napping on top of the couch where she perches to look out our huge picture window. Suddenly, there's an extremely loud thud, and I felt a vibration as something impacted the house. Startled, I jumped to my feet as Annabelle scampered into the kitchen, howling. I hurried to the living room and looked outside. I didn't see anything at first, but then, looking down into the shrubs that line the front of the house, I could see something moving around. Grabbed my phone, ran outside, and cautiously approached a large writhing object in the garden bed. At first, I thought it was a turkey vulture, but after I posted a picture, someone pointed out that it was actually a wild turkey. How it came to be flying around a suburban neighborhood before crashing into my window is a mystery. The poor bird expired not long after impact, and after a couple of fruitless calls to find assistance, I got a shovel and a garbage bag. The turkey was easily 25 pounds, and after disposing of the remains, I asked my neighbors to check their video. Sure enough, 124, a large shadow swoops across the screen until it glances off the window corner. The noise when it strikes is loud. The window rattles but holds. As my son later said, that would have gone from an amusing anecdote to a complete nightmare if it had hit head on. Which reminds me of Arthur Carlson's famous WKRP in Cincinnati Thanksgiving quote, "As God as my witness, I thought turkeys could fly."
Apparently not very well. So the editorial cartoon is not very funny, actually. It's a picture of the SAVE Act tied to an anvil labeled voter ID, and Uncle Sam with only his hands and his sleeves showing, one sleeve saying USA and the other one saying voters, and his hat is like flying off, and he's sinking, drowning
Quickly.
Yes, very sad. And here's some more stuff that's sad. More toxic threats from the editorial. Niagara Falls residents are right to demand action on radioactive waste. No wonder these Niagara County homeowners are outraged. Last May was the first they heard that radioactive waste may have been buried on 120 properties near John Nielsen Park in the town of Niagara, though the radiation had been detected by aerial surveys that began in October of 2023. Worse than that, in some cases, the levels of this radiation are extremely high, according to the New York Department of Environmental Conservation and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency officials who did further surveys last summer. As the news, Mackenzie Schumann, who had been closely following this story, reports, the DEC's findings from the aerial and vehicle surveys have not been released. The health risks to residents are unclear. The letters sent by the DEC in May to 120 property owners asked for access to investigate potential radiological activity and suggest a follow-up phone call. Understandably, residents are frightened, wondering if their children have been exposed during backyard play or if they've been harvesting produce from contaminated gardens. They're also angry about the long gap between the initial 2023 findings and the 2026 notifications. Place this situation within the context of Niagara County's history with toxic contamination, including the horrors of Love Canal, and outrage becomes totally understandable. As Damon Gilbert, a fellow in the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, stated, with an environmental justice community like this one that's been historically impacted by radiological concerns, residents deserve to be given transparency, and we agree. While it is important to make sure data is properly gathered and assessed, which takes time, the DEC and EPA should also keep in mind that they are dealing with people's lives. The presence of the radiation, which some may have been living with for decades, could have already caused deadly after effects, including, of course, cancer. The contamination has been traced to the usual suspects, the local chemistry industry, which had been selling various types of slag, a byproduct of superheated industrial processing, to contractors since as far back as 1939. Much, if not all, of the slag was radioactive, and there have already been many incidents where slag sold by such companies as Occidental Chemical Company, Union Carbide Corporation, and Bayer Crop Science Incorporated has been found on properties in Niagara Falls and Lewiston. Millions have already been spent to remediate properties throughout the region. There have also been lawsuits, including a 2024 suit from an Upper Mountain Road homeowner whose wife died of breast cancer. Now millions more will likely be spent, although the DEC is closed-mouthed about any remediation plans for these 120 properties. According to DEC's spokesperson, Todd Pignataro, first there must be a thorough evaluation and investigation, and then the DEC and DOH will then request federal assistance through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. It's no wonder that residents Lexi Hawk and her neighbor Carolyn Johnson sent a letter to Kathy Hochul demanding that she relocate their families and designate their neighborhood a state Superfund site. Indeed, both Hawk and Johnson were told they have high levels of radiation. Why would they accept waiting months, probably years, for this to be resolved as the health risk of staying on their properties increase? The DEC is right to want to make sure it has enough information before acting. To its credit, it plans to hold a community meeting this summer to share further information with the broader public. Kathy Hochul's office has been cautious, issuing a basic statement protecting,
Just skip that
Yeah,
one.
protecting public health and safety with the governor's top priority. None of this will allay residents' fears. It's unreasonable to expect it. Requests for relocation should be seriously considered, though it is early days for a Superfund site designation. One thing is clear. These residents deserve more transparency and, without reason, more tangible assistance from the government.
All right. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 31 minutes after the hour. And we hear from Abby McCloskey, who says it doesn't matter if social media age bans are not perfect. A new study finds that Australia's ban on social media accounts for kids under 16 has not curbed use among teens. The findings come as other nations are exploring age-based bans of their own. Has the social media train left the station, leaving parents and policymakers without a way to protect their kids from big tech's addictive embrace? As a mom, my take is that even if age limits are less effective than previously believed, it is still worth having them. Social media has rewired childhood. According to the American Psychological Association, teens are spending more than 5 hours a day on social platforms. Teens with the highest use tend to rate their mental health as poor or very poor. There has been a noticeable devolution in teens' mental health, coinciding with the introduction of smartphones and the rise of social apps, which is why in 2023, U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued a public health advisory about the dangers of social media for kids, and later called for a warning label to be put on accounts for adolescent users. More than a dozen states have proposed or implemented some type of age-based social media limit, although some have faced First Amendment challenges. But Australia was the first country to implement a nationwide social media age ban. Australia's Social Media Minimum Age Act of 2024 aimed to prevent users under 16 from accessing social media. It required platforms like TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat to verify ages of their users or else face fines. Other countries, including France, Spain, and now the UK, have followed suit. Starting in 2027, the UK's proposed ban would block under 16s from accessing social media accounts, but also from accessing certain social features on other sites, like communicating with strangers on Roblox. For concerned parents and policymakers, all of this seems like forward momentum, except that age bans might not work, according to the new study from Australia's University of Newcastle. The researchers found that more than 85% of teens, ages 12 to 17, continued to use restricted social media platforms in Australia after that law went into effect. A majority continued to access platforms through their own accounts. This, even though 2/3 encountered a form of age verification, including a self-declared age or uploading of a selfie. The study also did not find any reduction in daily use or time spent on social media. The only thing that seemed to really change was circumvention behavior. In response, Australian policymakers announced they would draft legislation to double the fines for social media companies to $99 million in Australian dollars. Fining social media companies for age-related violations is the enforcement of choice for the UK too, but it's not clear whether this works. Underneath this is a deeper question. Even if a more effective social media age ban were in place, with higher fines and fewer workarounds, would anything actually change? I will tell you that as a mom of 3 young kids, the oldest of whom is 11, that it makes me want to throw up my hands, that fighting the machine, as writer Paul Kingsnorth likes to call it, is a fool's errand. But I do think that the age bans for social media draw a clear line in the sand, and for that reason alone, they are worth continuing to pursue, around the world and in the U.S. Age limits can help the parent on the fence decide where to set limits for their child. It is the equivalent of the age limit on the beer that some parents still buy for their kids' parties, and some college students still get with a fake ID. A warning label saying this is ill-advised. We know that there are ways to get around these laws too, but that doesn't eliminate the case for age limits on alcohol. Evidence shows that over time, such age limits have reduced underage drinking, resulting in fewer teen traffic fatalities, and possibly even reducing binge drinking late into adulthood. So by all means, keep studying social media age limits and make improvements to the policies. But don't let this early discouraging evidence become an exit ramp for saying something that needs to be said. It's not good, on a personal or a societal level, to let children run free on social media.
And from David Drucker from the Bloomberg, in an opinion, is this socialist wave the left's answer to the Tea Party? The Democratic establishment, shaken by the rise of progressive socialists, is right to wonder where this wave might lead. The similarly populist movement of Tea Party Republicans, however, foreshadowed President Trump. Republican candidates for Congress, backed by the GOP establishment, were pushed to the limit beginning in the 2010 election cycle and continuing through 2012 and 2014. Some even fell in key primaries to conservative populists who identified as Tea Party candidates. These new voices energized voters itching for change and convinced that congressional Republicans were not fighting President Barack Obama hard enough. The fact that Republicans in the House of Representatives and Senate often did not have the votes to block Obama's agenda was lost on angry constituents. If that sounds familiar, look no further than the progressive populists, including but not limited to candidates affiliated with the Democratic Socialists of America, and their impact on Democratic primaries this year. They include Graham Plattner's nomination for Senate in Maine, the nomination of Malat Quiros for the House in Colorado, and primary wins for 3 New York congressional candidates backed by Big Apple Mayor Zohran Mamdani, a card-carrying Democrat Socialist member. It's very clear the grassroots energy in deep blue districts is entirely with the DSA wing of the party, said Jeremiah Johnson, a co-founder of the Center for New Liberalism and a contributing writer at The Dispatch. This is more about a desire for change and a desire for people who fight than about specific policies. 2 of the prominent Democratic incumbents who fell to socialist challengers, as Johnson pointed out, were in good progressive standing per their votes on the House floor. Representatives Diane DeGette in Colorado and Adriana Espaillat of New York, who happens to be chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Mamdani endorsed Espaillat's challenger. Adam Green, co-founder of Progressive Change Campaign Committee, a group backing many of the upstart socialists, said he believes this year's batch of progressive populists have broader appeal with voters than the Tea Party did. My worry with the Tea Party analogy is that it sounds like a wing of a wing, and really I think that's the economic populists that are winning could very much have more cross-partisan appeal in a general election. Many seasoned Democrat operatives disagree. They worry Republicans could flip an open Senate seat in swing state Michigan if progressives Abdul El-Sayed wins the nomination, and that the GOP would capture an open Democratic-held gubernatorial office in battleground Wisconsin if socialist Francesca Hong becomes the nominee there. Both are competing in August primaries. Similar concerns have come up related to progressive populist potential for upsetting Democratic establishment candidates and incumbents in primaries in Connecticut, Hawaii, and Missouri. The fear is that more success left-wing candidates have in primaries where Democrats dominate, the more Republicans will be able to tar the entire party as socialist for positions like advocating for the slashing of funds for the police and immigration and customs enforcement, implementing government-run single-payer health care, and eliminating all fossil fuel drilling. That's a recipe for disaster. Socialist wins can undermine centrist and pragmatic Democrats running in the battleground districts. In red states, Democrats need to win to seize majorities in the House and Senate, not to mention increase their control of governors' mansions and state legislatures. In a typical jurisdiction, a Democrat needs to capture 60% of the moderate vote to win, while a Republican only needs to get 40%. Case in point, President Donald Trump won just 41% of the moderate vote nationally, said Jim Kessler, Executive Vice President for Policy at Third Way, a centrist Democratic think tank in Washington. Republicans can win in many parts of the country by motivating conservative voters to turn out and then winning just enough of the reasonable middle. That is because nationally there are 3 conservative voters for every 2 liberal voters. If past is prologue, Democratic insiders are right to be concerned. The Tea Party's grassroots energy did help produce a historic GOP House majority in the 2010 midterm elections, but may have cost the party a Senate lead too. At the time, Republicans were positioned to flip a Senate seat in otherwise Democratic-leaning Delaware, but then Representative Mike Castle lost the GOP primary to an unelectable Tea Party challenger. In 2012, then Democrats Senate Joe Donnelly of Indiana and Claire McCaskill of Missouri were exceedingly vulnerable in states that had turned ruby red during their tenure. But they won re-election even as Obama was defeated in their states after their respective Tea Party Republican challengers bungled their campaigns. The GOP finally won the Senate majority in 2014 after intervening in party primaries to quash unelectable Tea Party candidates. On top of that, Tea Party factions of the Republicans' House majority regularly paralyzed the party during the Obama administration. They insisted on perfection or nothing and regularly thwarted incremental conservative reforms as part of compromises with the 44th president. The failed Obamacare shutdown of 2013, for example, was just one political boondoggle the Tea Party foisted on the Republican establishment. But the Tea Party did leave its stamp on the Republican Party in a consequential and lasting way: Trump. Despite some small wins at the height of the movement, what conservative populists wanted more than anything was a fighter, and the president delivered. There's still a way to go in this year's Democratic primaries, not to mention the party's 2028 presidential nominating contest. But this looks eerily familiar. Yes, it does.
And Froma Harap says it's time for Democrats to rein in Sanders. The Plattner fiasco has unleashed a brawl in the Democratic Party over how the sexting candidate with a Nazi tattoo came to be their rival to Susan Collins, now in her 5th term as Republican senator from Maine. Bernie Sanders thought his socialists could pass off blue-collar impersonator Graham Plattner, a product of the elite Hotchkiss Prep School, as a hard-working oysterman. Sanders had been waving off concerns about the guy. Then he called on Plattner to leave the campaign. 2 problems with Bernie's new directive. Sanders is why Democrats got saddled with Plattner, and the new revelations come on top of previous revelations about his behavior. Sanders thought he could ignore all this until more startling charges came to light. The dam holding back Democratic demands to replace Plattner finally broke. If Sanders pretended to have problems with the candidate he pushed onto the party, he wouldn't be in a strong position to choose his own left fringe replacement with a colorful story. The road to socialist victories, Sanders knows, runs through infiltrating the Democratic Party. His objective is not to help Democrats take over Congress, but for his socialists to take over the Democratic Party. Sanders, the independent senator from Vermont, is not a Mainer and not much of a Vermonter either. He's a New Yorker, spending large amount of times back home in hardcore Democratic districts, succeeding to get his followers to knock off liberal Democratic incumbents in primaries. The thing is, the Democratic Socialists of America are heavily represented by college-educated voters who don't have to worry about losing their health coverage. They don't like the rents they have to pay to live in the neighborhoods they're busy gentrifying. They think socialists can fix that. If finding plausible Democrats to represent the party requires a Democratic rumble, let's have it. So far, few prominent Democrats have spoken forcefully about the far left's boutique nominees. The exception is Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. He let loose, calling Plattner a predator, a bona fide dirtbag, and referring to him as P-Hustle, his old Reddit handle. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, more gentle in his rebuke, joins Fetterman as a Democrat who won office in a state that's been turning Republican. Democrats shouldn't need a lot of magic to get one of their own elected in blue New England in a year favoring their party. Sanders, age 84, might consider retirement, but another leftist string puller at the other end of the age spectrum, 27-year-old campaign advisor Morris Katz, should also look for another line of work. Katz won some fame as the mind behind New York Mayor Zoran Madani's adorable internet storytelling campaign. Looking to repeat his act in Maine, Katz pushed the utterly unqualified Plattner over the primary win line, despite Plattner's imperfections being widely known. Katz then made the dumb mistake of personally threatening a woman who left the Plattner campaign, demanding she refute the things she knew about his abuse of women. Democrats need to replace the internet-savvy fringe operatives with internet-savvy mainstream operatives of their own. Above all, they need to take the car keys away from Bernie Sanders.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 46 minutes past the hour. And as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, you can call us at 716-821-5555. Gary K. Connors. Virginia Ginger Lee Kelly. Helen Kosa. Nee Pavlicek. Monica A. Lorenz. Nee Zafranchek. Szafraniec. Christopher O'Brien. Salvatore T. Chavone Sr. And I'm going to just flip the other page here. And Sam Neill, who's 78 years old, from New Zealand, an actor best known for his Jurassic Park acting, passed away. He was also in some other big hits too, like Hunt for Red October. And also, Wei Ching Ho died at the age of 82, and she was the actress who played Marvel villain Madame Gao. Yes. So if you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
It's time for Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Tuesday, July 14th. You attract the affection and admiration of others. You are empathetic, purposeful, and have a strong sense of justice. This is a year of building solid foundations and structures, both internally and externally. But simplicity is key. Take charge of your health, because physical exercise is important. If you're Aries, be aware of the limitations of the moon alert. Nevertheless, this can be a warm and happy day, especially with family members. Tonight, socialize. I don't know what the moon alert was, but apparently it was a bad deal. Taurus, be aware that most of this day is a moon alert. Restrict your spending to food and gas. Thinking about your style of communicating with others. Tonight, home and family. Geminis, today, the only new moon that occurs in your money house all year is happening now. Meanwhile, be careful about spending. Tonight, have discussions. Cancer, today has opportunities and challenges. The new moon in your sign is a lovely opportunity to take a realistic look in the mirror and improve your image. Tonight, check your money. Leo, today's new moon is your chance to think about your spiritual values and small resolutions, because tonight you win. Virgos, your focus today is on friendships, what they mean to you, and what kind of a friend you are. Tonight, though, stay away from friends and enjoy your privacy. Libras, Today's new moon is at the top of your chart. This is the day to do a reality check and think about the direction that you're headed in. Are you going where you really want to go? Tonight, be friendly. Scorpios, today's new moon is a great chance to think about what travel or further education you want to explore. Tonight, you will be admired. Sagittarius, the sun, the new moon, and retrograde Mercury are all in one of your money houses. Tonight, explore and learn something new. I guess having a new moon in your house, your money house, is a good thing.
Yeah.
Capricorn, relations with partners, spouses, and close friends will be interesting today. Tonight, check your finances. Boy, poor Capricorn. Aquarius, in one way, this is an excellent day for you to think about how you can improve your health, as well as how you can improve your job. It doesn't say about the other ways. Tonight, just cooperate and listen. Pisces, this is a very creative day for you. Enjoy smoozing and socializing with others, especially old flames and people from your past. Tonight, though, work to get yourself better organized.
All right, sounds like a plan. And so let's go over to the buffalo next. I almost said shrinking heads. Shrinking herds, inflation blamed for persistently high beef costs. A quick stop at the grocery store, your local hot dog stand, or favorite Italian beef spot, and you may experience some genuine sticker shock. It's not just you. Beef prices are rising and rapidly. Average prices are up nearly 13% in the last year, with a pound of ground beef now costing $6.75 nationwide. That's
Holy
ridiculous.
cow.
According
Holy
to
cow.
There you go, good one. The cost of ground beef has already surpassed all-time highs twice this year, and cattle ranchers and beef market experts alike doubt it'll be the last. The historically high prices seen this year are the result of a combination of economic and environmental factors, from inflation and a labor shortage to drought and disease. All contribute to one bottom line: less beef. Meanwhile, demand has never been higher, and as the summer grilling season heats up, that demand is only likely to increase. There's a beef shortage. I mean, that's the simplest way I can say it, said Cliff McCovnell, the founder of Allgrass Farms, a family farm based in Dundee, Illinois, that raises cattle and other livestock. Americans are paying the price for that shortage in the form of higher grocery bills and restaurant costs. Lower domestic beef production is the result of a shrinking U.S. cattle herd, with the total head of cattle, calves, and beef cows declining for 7 consecutive years. We're in a very unique situation in the cattle industry right now. We're at multi-decade lows, said Darrell Peel, a livestock marketing specialist with the Department of Agriculture Economics at Oklahoma State University. The national cattle inventory is currently at a 75-year low, per the National Agricultural Statistics Service latest report. Further, the number of beef cows specifically is the lowest it's been since 1961, and the total 2025 calf crop dropped another 2% year over year to lows not seen since the 1940s. The latter in particular spells trouble. Put simply, fewer calves and cows means less beef, and less beef translates to higher prices in the grocery aisle. So why exactly is the herd population so low? Agricultural specialists and cattle farmers agree that climate and the environment play a big role. To some extent, that domestic inventory is a result of environmental conditions that nobody can control, namely drought. Severe drought in the western and southwestern parts of the country have been a persistent issue for decades. More recently, the plains have been hit by extreme drought. We've had quite a bit of drought out west, and our out west has the largest number of cattle, said Teresa Steckler. In southwest Nebraska, in the Sandhills, a lot of those pastures got burnt, and we've had fires in the Panhandle where we've actually lost cattle due to the fires. Drought damages pasture lands, reduces the natural feed supply, and restricts water access needed to raise livestock. The result is additional operational costs, or worse. Drought-induced herd liquidation, as Steckler calls it, If ranchers don't have the essential resources needed to raise cattle, feed, water, and space for grazing, they're forced to cull their herds. That means even less meat making it to production. But drought isn't the only environmental factor. Disease poses another threat. Ranchers have to be vigilant about ticks, flies, and other pests that can infect livestock. Asian longhorned ticks, cattle fever ticks, and Ceratogonomonidae, or no-see-ums.
Oh, I like that word. We know those.
Can't say it either, eums. Spread diseases can be fatal to the cattle. More recently, an outbreak of New York screwworm,
The flesh-eating screwworm.
you're right, in Mexico has become a cause for concern. To stop the spread of the disease, the U.S. cut off all live cattle imports from the country in July of 25. An added supply constraint gives Mexico is regularly a top supplier to its northern neighbors. Our calf crop has gotten smaller for the last 8 years, so when you take that and then you don't get another 1 million head of cattle, roughly, that you would have gotten from Mexico, that makes that tight supply even tighter.
And construction begins next month on a new cruise ship terminal. Construction on the cruise ship terminal on Buffalo's Outer Harbor is slated to begin next month as the state waterfront agency oversees the project, looks ahead to welcoming multiple ships and cruise line to western New York starting in 2028. The first cruise ship to visit Buffalo in decades arrived in late May when American Cruise Line's American Patriot docked at a temporary berth at the Erie Basin Marina near Canalside, unloading 130 passengers to tour around our city. That was the first of what officials hope will be many visits, not only by American Cruise Lines, an American flagged carrier, but also other cruise lines that ply the Great Lakes, including those originating or stopping previously in only Canadian ports. At least one, Victory Cruise Lines, has committed to it, while others have expressed interest. It's just a wonderful moment for the city, for the state, to have this kind of tourism destination at our waterfront, and to give people the opportunity to see Buffalo from a way that it isn't typically seen unless you are on a boat. Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation President Mark Wendell said, "It's just an amazing moment that we're going to be welcoming so many visitors from the water. The goal is to attract more tourists while taking advantage of Buffalo's position at the eastern end of Lake Erie and the southern end of the Welland Canal to capitalize on cruise travel along the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway. This is the beginning of a game changer for Western New York," ECHDC Chairwoman Joan Kessner said. But the state first needs to create the infrastructure to welcome such visits, particularly for customs inspections. The Harbor Agency on Monday approved a $13.4 million contract with Union Concrete and Construction to start the site preparation at the former Slip 2 site at the Pier Restaurant, located at 275 Furman Boulevard, which was demolished back in 2007.
And you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for July 14th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more reading after the short break. Your readers today are
Lori and
Lita.
Hello, listeners. Give 716 is happening now. It's an online fundraiser sponsored by the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres Foundations with dozens of prizes and matching grants available to make your donation to Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service go farther. You'll find a complete list on our Facebook page, but here's what I suggest. Mark your calendar for Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. If you make any size donation to radio reading on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m., we'll automatically enter you in a drawing for a pair of Buffalo Bison's tickets, redeemable for a Tuesday through Thursday home game before August 31st. If you donate $50 or more, you'll also receive your choice of a Buffalo Bills, Sabres, or Bandits pendant and a chance to win an even grander golden ticket one-of-a-kind experience from the Bills and Sabres, like tickets, private tours, and autographed team merchandise. You can go to give716.org anytime before July 17th to make a donation to Radio Reading. Make a donation on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. to win the extra prizes. That's give716.org. Search for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service and make a very important donation supporting our future.
That was you.
Okay, I thought you were going to do it. We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Lori and Lita. And it's the 14th of July.
Okay, this is it. This article obsessed me. AI millionaires rewriting luxury playbook. Okay, sitting on roughly $3.5 million in SpaceX shares, Chip, a former data scientist at Elon Musk aerospace behemoth, recently bought a meteorites worth $10,000 and $5,000 fire truck. The 50-year-old space enthusiast is not sure how he will use the truck, maybe as an attraction for his 3-year-old kid's birthday party. But his new wealth tied to SpaceX's initial public offering in June has given him the freedom to buy silly things. That's silly. Chip, who asked to use only his first name to discuss personal finances, has been eyeing the TAG or TAG Carrera. Okay, see, you're a racer. Carrera Calibre?
Calibre 887 SpaceX chronograph watch.
Thank you very much. In the $8,000 range, inspired by NASA astronaut John Glenn's 1962 mission in Earth's orbit. Despite the excitement, the jury is still out on whether an estimated 440,000 U.S. millionaires minted by stock market gains last year and more recently AI companies' public listings will translate into a new golden era for the global luxury goods sector. This industry is competing more and more with other industries and with other buckets of possible expenditures and purchases, said Federico Lovato, a partner at the consultancy Bain & Company. Struggling fashion brands are looking to the tech billionaire booms for a lifeline as they face persistent weakness in China and consumer unease globally. The personal luxury goods market, valued at $406 billion in 2025, has contracted over the last 2 years. Yet North America was among the fastest growing regions for luxury groups, LVMH, Rickman Hermes, okay, go ahead.
Carrying Gucci in the quarter to March 31st.
Okay, Richemont CEO Nicholas Bose told analysts in May that a high level of consumer confidence in America translated into strong sales. As they try to sell to new tech millionaires, brands have to reckon with their unique taste and competing interests that deflect attention from traditional luxury items. I played volleyball in high school and college, said AI strategist Zach Cass, who left ChatGPT creator OpenAI's go-to-market until 2023 and owns an undisclosed stake in SpaceX. I literally took my OpenAI winnings and bought a professional sports team. Jeez, referring to a volleyball team. But the opportunity remains for traditional multi-$1,000 watchers from top brands, including Rolex and Richemont's Cartier, also thanks to their investment appeal, as their resale price is often higher than the retail price. You're not wearing your smartwatch with your tux or your suit, said Harrison Colcord, the founder of Harrison Lifestyle Concierge.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
really.
Scary. Did you know that Seven Brew eyes a main transit clearance for the next store?
I did not.
What happens when you combine Buffalo Niagara's hottest new coffee chain with one of the busiest roads? People in Clarence could find out soon. Seven Brew wants to open a coffee shop on Transit Road near Main Street in one of the most heavily traveled sections of Metro Buffalo. The Arkansas-based chain, known for its dizzying array of drink choices and its popularity with young consumers, is on a major expansion push that brought the company to this market just last year. I was mentioning there's one in Lockport now. When its first local shop opened in December in Amherst, the line of vehicles in the store's drive-through lanes often spilled out onto North Bailey Avenue near Maple Road. Some Clarence Town Board members feared similar customer congestion at the proposed store in the Transitown Plaza, but the Seven Brew developer has worked to address those concerns. The company says the larger storefront footprint in the plaza and other design features will prevent the traffic problems generated, especially early on, at the Seven Brew in Amherst, and town officials now agree. They will have more staging at the Clarence location than any other location in western New York, so I don't expect that opening up in Clarence will be a traffic problem, at least Town Supervisor Patrick Casilio told the Buffalo News. The proposed Clarence store is going through the approval process and requires further review by the Town Zoning Board of Appeals, Town Planning Board, and the Town Board before construction can actually begin. We definitely want to be part of it, and we feel that we can do that in a safe way from a traffic standpoint. But we're going to go through the process as directed by the city and make sure that we can get all that to final decision. Dennis Minchella, Brutopia's chief operating officer, said in an interview on Monday. 4 coffee shops are open here. Seven Brew has gained a following for its vast menu of drink options, with its website stating customers can choose from among more than 20,000 combinations.
Oh my gosh.
Coffee is only a small piece of what Seven Brew offers. Another notable feature is the chain offers drive-through service only, and they do not sell food. You don't enter the shop to order, nor is there any indoor seating. Seven Brew workers take orders from customers outside, and they bring their drinks to their vehicles when everything's ready. Cleveland-based franchise company Brewtopia said it plans to open at least 10 stores here. The first at Maple Road and North Bailey Avenue at the former Scotch and Sirloin site in Amherst opened in mid-December with the standard walk-up window and dual drive-through lanes. Its status as the first and only Area 7 Brew meant long lines of customers snaking onto North Bailey Avenue and even Maple at peak hours. The franchise operator has said traffic will calm down as more Seven Brew locations open up. The company has since opened stores in Dunkirk, Niagara Falls, and Lockport. A 5th location in Hamburg recently received site plan approval. Keeping cars off of Transit Road. The developer plans to build the Clarence 7 Brew at 4301 Transit Road, and that is in the Transitown Plaza. The plaza at the corner of Transit and Main covers nearly 24 acres, including the main block of storefronts and 3 outbuildings on the property. The developer wants to construct a 510 square foot building with an adjoining cooler and 2 drive-through lanes in a section of the parking lot along Transit Road just south of the freestanding Pearl Vision store. The town board first discussed the Seven Brew proposal at its May 27th meeting. Deputy Supervisor Peter DeCostanzo said he was most worried about traffic from the coffee shop leaking onto busy transit. He asked Brutopia's representatives what their data on customer volume at new stores reveals. Gaurav Agaral, a Brutopia owner, said the company expects customer levels to drop off after the initial excitement of the new store and promotional events tied to the shop opening, and he said the volume for the store openings in Lockport and Niagara Falls wasn't as high as it was for the first in the area Amherst shop. He also noted this Seven Brew would be roughly halfway between the existing stores in Lockport and Amherst, and he said the traffic flow setup is better for the proposed Clarence store than it was for the Amherst store, which is located on less than an acre of land at the corner of Maple and North Bailey. Anthony Pandolf, a senior associate with Carmina Wood Design, said the Clarence 7 Brew would have room to stack 30 vehicles in the store's drive-through lanes with overflow space available in the plaza parking lot if they need it. We definitely want locations that are more like this, where there are a great area and you're not going to expose cars to Transit Road, Minchella told the news. The May 27th meeting included an extensive discussion of traffic patterns, landscaping, how Seven Brew stores function, and whether this proposed site or another within the Transitown Plaza was best for that coffee shop. Casilio said he wasn't ready to support the project at that time because he first needed to visit some other Area 7 Brew shops, especially the location in Amherst. The town board tabled the proposal until its June 10th meeting. Pandolf told the board members then that the developer had adjusted the site plan to address some town board concerns, including better separating the Seven Brew property from the neighboring Pearl Vision shop and adding to landscaping at that site. He also promised Seven Brew would assign employees strictly to handle traffic control at that store. And he said the company believed the clearance store would be able to handle 140 customer vehicles per hour, higher than the 122 vehicles the Amherst store sees at its peak times. As long as they have proper staffing to direct cars, then there's plenty of room to stack at even the most busiest of times, said Jennifer Blair, Director of Community Development for the town. Casilio, DiCostanzo, and others said updates from Brewtopia and visits to other Seven Brews had addressed some of their concerns. Casilio did say he wanted the Transit Town Plaza entrance and exit from Transit Road blocked off, at least temporarily, to make sure traffic doesn't clog transit. This would require Seven Brew customers to access the shop at a traffic light controlled entrance near Home Depot to the south of the proposed location, or from Main Street. The town board voted to refer the project to the town planning board for conceptual review. I expect quickly that their operation should become normal and manageable, Casilio said in an interview. The planning board on July the 1st voted down the proposal because it requires variances for building size and setback from transit. Brewtopia is, as required, seeking variances from the Town Zoning Board of Appeals, said Blair. The project requires those and other approvals before construction can begin. Minchella said he's hopeful the company can address the town's needs and have the store ready to open the first part of 2027. Brewtopia also is eyeing new stores in Cheektowaga, Blaisdell, and Olean, he said. It is a great market, Minchella said. How do you make a decision when there's 20,000 options?
I don't know.
I mean, people will sit there and just
Yes.
die. I don't know. There you go.
Be crazy.
They won't die. Seven Brews is the company. Sorry.
When you think about it, it's like a generational thing, because it was like Tim Hortons, and then it was Starbucks, which came from the West Coast,
Yep.
and now we have this new one
Yep.
popping up.
Yep.
And what
Thirsty people.
all
Thirsty
coffee people.
All coffee people.
All right, so
Although there's 20,000 options that are not all coffee.
I can't even imagine. Plus, how do you look at 20,000 options?
Yeah, I don't know.
U.S. companies race to lead drone deliveries. How about that? Engineer Beth Flippo uprooted her family in 2021, trading New Jersey for the rambling fields of Ohio, where she had been tapped to run a pilot program delivering groceries via drone for Kroger. It lasted just 8 months before both parties agreed to suspend it. We couldn't make any money, said Flippo, head of a drone company, Dexa. Success would have meant placing workers around town to watch the drones, as U.S. federal rules prohibited flying them outside human sight. It just couldn't scale, she said. Such hurdles may soon be a thing of the past. Spurred by an executive order by President Trump's administration in June of 25, the Federal Aviation Administration has proposed new rules to speed the deployment of drones. It comes as American leaders see the nation as locked in a battle with China for drone dominance. If adopted, the new FAA rules would significantly shorten that horizon and open the floodgates on a movement that's already gaining momentum. Researchers at PwC in 2024 estimated that the U.S. drone market will grow 65% a year, through 2034. Globally, drone deliveries will spike from about 13 million this year to more than 800 million by 2034. For now, the market is relatively small, a few $billion globally according to a range of estimates. But U.S. retail behemoths Walmart and Amazon, which began their drone programs in 21 and 22 respectively, are actively scaling networks. Food industry players like Papa John's, Wonder, and DoorDash are building out more nascent programs, having partnered in recent years with drone companies able to operate through waivers. We're at a commercial inflection point, said Heather Rivera, Chief Business Officer at Wing, Alphabet's drone division, which boasts Walmart as its biggest client. At Walmart, which also partners with drone provider Zipline, drone delivery is mainly used for a last-minute, urgent, convenience-driven items. The retailer's senior vice president, Mike Walden, said, That means things like allergy, meds, cat food, and the mustard and barbecue host suddenly realizes he forgot. The Walmart app tells shoppers if their purchase is drone eligible at the outset. If a shopper selects drone delivery, the app tracks their cart to make sure their order fits within the drone's weight limit. With drone technology still relatively new, weight capacities are limited. At Walmart, the max capacity or payload is about 3 to 8 pounds, depending on the drone. Walmart is inching toward 2 million drone deliveries, said Walden, but the large majority have come this year as the program rapidly grows. Walmart has drones at 70 stores, a tiny fraction of its roughly 4,600 U.S. locations, but aims to surpass 270 by the end of next year. Amazon, which this week opened its 10th U.S. drone delivery network in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, says its drone delivery is less than half an hour. Challenges remain. Several communities have flagged concerns about noise and privacy, but the potential cost benefits are alluring. The PwC researchers estimated per delivery cost could fall to as low as $2 by 2034, much lower than traditional delivery. Most U.S. drone operators and retailers are targeting suburbs where spacious yards, congested road traffic, and population density make quick air-based delivery attractive. Speed is a key draw. Walmart claims to have achieved a drone delivery in under 5 minutes and says drones are generally a bit faster than ground deliveries.
Wow, just all these visions. I see myself out at the grill. Oh, I need mustard. And it flies in next to you.
I know, I forgot the cat food.
That's wild. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service, and the time is exactly 16 minutes after the hour. Moody's maintains city's credit rating and downgrades the outlook. One of the big three credit rating agencies has maintained the city of Buffalo's bond rating, but downgraded its future outlook. Moody's, one of the three bond rating agencies closely followed by bond investors, held the city's bond rating at A1 negative, but downgraded the outlook, the agency's views of potential future developments, from stable to negative. The outlook change does not affect terms for bonds the cities may issue this year, but it serves as a warning that without adjustments to budgeting practices, the city's rating would likely be downgraded in the future. The ratings agency expressed concerns with the city's depleted reserve funds, the use of one-time revenue sources in city budgets, and significant budget gaps in recent fiscal years. Moody's listed the city's status as regionally important to the local economy and the oversight of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority as credit strength that helps the city's rating and its outlook. The news comes on the heels of a bond downgrade from S&P Global, another of the big three rating agencies. City officials have said they expect the credit rating to rise again once they begin replenishing reserve funds and bringing city budgets into balance. The current budget included a 19% tax levy increase, significantly closing a budget gap of more than $100 million. The current budget does include some one-time revenue sources, something Mayor Sean Ryan's administration has said they plan to do away with in future years, closing the gap through more, though smaller, increases to the tax levy in their upcoming budgets.
Okay, and I'd just like to preface this article by saying that the Superintendent Pascal Mubenga unexpectedly retired or turned in his resignation yesterday or this morning, and there's not really any reason as to why that occurred. And so now the article is entitled "Buffalo Wants to Scrap Planned Da Vinci High School Moved to SUNY Buffalo State." Buffalo Public Schools intended to abandon a 4-year effort to move the district high-performing Leonardo da Vinci High School to SUNY Buffalo State University, Buckham Hall, according to a resolution on the school board's agenda for its meeting this week. Superintendent Pascal Mubenga on Monday explained in a statement why he filed the resolution. As superintendent, I consulted with the Board of Education on multiple occasions about locating Leonardo da Vinci High School to the campus of Buff State. Those discussions made it clear that the board did not support moving forward with the relocation of Da Vinci and instead directed me to change courses. It is my responsibility to carry out the direction of the board, and therefore a resolution was submitted that upholds the board's stance and is required because the board previously approved a resolution endorsing Da Vinci's possible relocation to Buff State's Buckham Hall. The Da Vinci project's rising costs are the primary driver for scrapping the plans, the resolution reads. The anticipated cost of developing Buckham Hall for the relocation of Leonardo da Vinci High School has more than doubled to nearly $60 million, Mubanga wrote. The original estimated cost in October of 23 was about $28 million, although a year later, the Buffalo News reported it had increased to $34 million. In a budget update in May of 25, Chief Financial Officer Jim Barnes presented to the school board that the project had increased to $44 million. It has risen another $16 million since. The development stunned Assemblyman Jonathan Rivera, who helped pass legislation 3 years ago to allow Buff State to sublease the building to the school district. He said he learned about the proposed resolution from a contact who sent him a link to the school board's agenda. The fact that they did this without conversation, without transparency, is really, really disappointing, said Rivera, who last month won the Democratic primary for state senate. I am exhausted by what I see in the Buffalo public school system. SUNY Buffalo State University Provost Amitra Wall issued a statement Monday afternoon. We are disappointed to see the resolution appearing on the school board's agenda, Wall said. We continue to believe relocating Leonardo da Vinci High School to the Buff State campus would create meaningful opportunities for students while benefiting Buffalo schools, public schools, the city of Buffalo, and Buff State University. Wall highlighted existing partnerships between the university at the urban school district, including the Urban Teacher Academy and dual credit programs. The current conflict touches everything from Da Vinci's mission and the district's long-term finances to educational advocacy and an enduring fiscal feud in the city. Da Vinci, which enrolls about 375 students in 9th through 12th grade, achieved a 100% graduation rate in 2 of the last 4 years and was previously honored by the U.S. Department of Education as a National Blue Ribbon School. Like a handful of the district's high schools, Da Vinci is a criteria school for which students must apply and are considered for admission on previous academic scores, attendance, and teacher recommendations. For nearly 40 years, until spring of 23, Da Vinci students studied on the west side campus of D'Youville University, which exposed them to college classes without needing transportation. As D'Youville pivoted its focus toward health professions, sought to increase enrollment and reconfigure within the tight confines of its campus, the university and Buffalo Schools, decided their 2022 lease extension would be their last. The nature of Da Vinci High School is to be integrated on a college campus. That's how that school was created, former Buffalo Schools Administrator Will Karetzis explained early on in the project. Since 24, Da Vinci has been housed in a swing school, the former School 8 on East Utica Street, for which the district paid $12 million in emergency renovations, so the temporary site, vacant for more than a decade, could be ready to educate students in the 23-24 school year. For the last 3 years, Da Vinci has not been physically connected to or within walking distance of a college campus. Da Vinci's school website teased plans for its offering at Buff State, and high school sophomores were to take a public speaking class at the university, then take 3 to 4 college classes in each of their junior and senior years. Rivera is concerned about the decision's impact on the Da Vinci community, which he says has held up its end of the bargain. It was by all measures successful, he said, and we've now misled families and students on the belief that where they were
was only temporary.
Where they were was only temporary. Thank you. Buffalo Schools did not sit idly after the school board approved Da Vinci's long-term move to Buckham Hall. The district intended to pay for the project through a bond sale with the city of Buffalo, which was held up by City Comptroller Barbara Miller Williams during a much-publicized conflict with the city leadership that began in late 24 and continues to this day in the State Court of Appeals. For the 25 capital budget, Miller Williams questioned the inclusion of Da Vinci in the bond sale because neither the city nor the school district owned the building on Buff State's campus for which it would bond, and Da Vinci enrolls only about 400 of the district's 28,000 students. Although the Common Council approved a 25 capital project budget of $55 million for Buffalo schools, with about $24 million allocated for developing Buckham Hall for Da Vinci, the comptroller refused to go to market for the $110 million split between the city and schools. Although more than 95% of the cost of the Buffalo Schools project will be eligible for reimbursement by New York, Miller Williams requested the school district return with a cheaper list of projects. The district then followed with a list for $22 million in urgent building repairs at 21 existing schools, for which Miller Williams went to the bond market. Da Vinci, at its $24 million cost, was left off the revised list. In January of 25, the lack of progress at Buff State and confusion over funding led the school community to voice complaints to the Common Council. We understood the sacrifices that needed to happen while Buff State was getting ready for us, and we accepted that, Ken Sanders said, then a sophomore at Da Vinci told the council. Going back on that plan would be a disappointing decision and a betrayal to the Da Vinci community. As the battle over fiscal authority between city and comptroller lingering in court, the share of the Da Vinci cost that would be the district's responsibility increased from $10 million in 22 to more than $35 million. That figure ultimately collided with the district's financial concerns, given the district's commitment of $126 million in reserves to balance the budget the last 2 years, as well as the cost-driven need to close at least 4 schools this fall. The best home for Da Vinci and how to pay for it has been a thorny topic for district leaders and school boards for years, with the school's parents and students protesting both the setting at Dieuville and that district's leaders dragging their feet as the lease with Dieuville neared expiration. Although the school board ultimately approved moving Da Vinci to Buff State in 22, not everyone agreed. Paulette Woods voted against the move, while Sharon Belton Cotman abstained from the vote but shared her thoughts. It is unacceptable that we are being asked today to spend $26.5 million and you cannot tell me what the lease amount is going to be. You cannot tell me where the children are going next year, and you cannot tell me why Buff State is requiring us to remodel their building and only give us a 15-year lease. And we think that's great for our students, Belton Cotman said at a 2022 meeting. Rivera and then State Senator Sean Ryan, now Buffalo's mayor, in 2023 passed legislation in their respective houses to allow Buffalo schools to sublease a building that SUNY Buff State leased from SUNY. A second component of the legislation made the Buckham Hall rehabilitation effort eligible for state building aid. Rivera said he and Ryan do not agree with Mubenga's rationale for nixing Da Vinci move. We had countless conversations with the prior superintendent, now with this superintendent, with multiple members of the school board, and they are fixated on arguments that make no sense, Rivera said. It's clear that adult supervision is needed in the school system.
Wow.
It's a mess.
3 men are charged after a fight at Beaver Island. 3 men were arrested after a large fight Sunday evening in a parking lot of Beaver Island State Park on Grand Island, said state police in a news release Monday. A 42-year-old man was taken to Erie County Medical Center to be treated for lacerations to his head. Wilfredo Rodriguez of Buffalo, age 40, faces 5 charges from the incident: second-degree assault, second-degree criminal possession of a weapon, second-degree obstruction of administration, second-degree criminal possession of a firearm in a sensitive location, and second-degree menacing, state police said. Rodriguez did not have a pistol permit for his Glock 26 and is a convicted felon, police added, so he was taken to Erie County Holding Center. Michael A. Acosta Padilla of Buffalo, age 27, was charged with second-degree obstruction of administration and fourth-degree criminal mischief. Jean-Pierre Montalvo Santos of Buffalo, age 29, was charged with second-degree obstruction of administration. Police said Acosta Padilla and Montalvo Santos were uncooperative and were taken into custody before being released on appearance tickets. State troopers, state park police, U.S. Border Patrol, and Erie County Sheriff's deputies responded to the state park after receiving calls at 5:30 p.m. regarding a large fight with possible weapon. They encountered a large crowd of men, women, and children in the parking lot, the release said, and 2 vehicles tried to exit the parking lot but were stopped by law enforcement, leading to those arrests.
And just going to give you a heads up, my computer's a little wonky.
Oh, let's do a time check.
Okay.
You're listening to reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service.
Okay.
And the time is 30 minutes after the hour.
Oh my God.
Now you can read.
I think I should just shoot myself now. So Hochul is seeking answers from Homeland Security on plans to expand Batavia Detention Center. Hochul is asking U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen to speak with her about reports that his agency plans to expand a federal immigration detention facility in Batavia and install new detention cells in Rochester and Newburgh. The letter, dated Saturday, said New Yorkers have learned about the expansion of U.S. immigration and custom enforcement facilities from news reports and procurement records. So I ask, is your department building or expanding immigration detention facilities in New York? Hochul wrote Mullen, whom President Trump appointed in March after dismissing his predecessor, whom Hochul had called to resign. If so, where, to what capacity, and under what authority? And is this being done at your direction despite President Trump's commitment that ICE enforcement operations in New York would not be expanded unless requested by the governor? Hochul told Mullen she was concerned about his agency's possible plan to expand the already overcrowded facility in Batavia, which she said was cited by an inspector general for improper treatment of detainees. In Rochester, she said the agency, over the objection of the chief judge, mayor, county, and community, wanted to install detention cells in a federal court building that now houses a daycare facility. She noted reports that in Newburgh, a city in Orange County about 65 miles north of New York City, the administration signed an agreement to lease a warehouse to use as a detention facility. She said no one had spoken to local, county, or state officials despite bipartisan condemnation of the proposal. You have repeatedly promised to coordinate with local communities, and that's not happening, Hochul wrote. Instead of focusing on the worst of the worst, your administration is detaining neighbors and co-workers, separating families, and secretly building the infrastructure to detain even more people. In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security did not say whether Mullen would speak with Hochul. DHS responded to official correspondence through official channels, it said. An ICE agent fatally shot Renee Nicole Good, 37, on the 7th of January, and CBP agents fatally shot Alex Preddy, 37, on the 24th of January. Both incidents were in Minneapolis on February 19th. CBP agents released Nurul Amin Shah Alam, 56, a mostly blind, non-English speaking refugee from Myanmar, from the Erie County Holding Center and dropped him off in Arctic weather outside a closed Tim Hortons restaurant in Black Rock. He was found dead 5 days later. Hochul has condemned all of the incidents. On Monday, multiple news agencies were reporting a fatal ICE-related shooting in Biddeford, Maine, which followed a fatal ICE-related shooting in Houston last week. Hochul signed legislation in the recent $277 billion state budget to cease agreements between New York law enforcement agencies and the federal government that allowed ICE to use their officers and resources, including jails and civil immigration raids. The budget also prohibits all officers from New York from wearing masks when interacting with the public. My longstanding policy has always been that we will cooperate with law enforcement when crimes have been committed and there is a warrant for arrest or a court order, because we want our streets to be safe as well. But this unbridled aggression against law-abiding New Yorkers must stop, Hochul said. In his statement, Mullen's agency criticized Hochul, saying her policies of not cooperating with ICE put New Yorkers in danger. When politicians bar local law enforcement from working with DHS, our law enforcement officers have to have a more visible presence so that we can find and apprehend the criminals let out of jail and back into communities. In response, a Hochul spokesperson said the agency's statement was patently false. Governor Hochul has been very clear. New York will never be a sanctuary for dangerous criminals, the spokesperson said. We will continue working with federal authorities to target violent offenders and dangerous criminals, but we will not stand by if ICE floods our communities with agents, separating families, and turns our neighborhoods into the backdrop for a campaign of fear.
And ex-chapel pastor admits to rape and abuse of 2 minor victims. The former executive pastor at the chapel, a Christian megachurch in Gettsville, pleaded guilty on Monday to second-degree rape and second-degree course of sexual conduct against a child. The Erie County District Attorney's Office, in a news release, said John A. Camardo III in 2024 engaged on 2 occasions in sexual intercourse with a victim who was less than 15 years old. The DA's office said Camardo, age 47, engaged in sexual conduct with a second victim who was less than 13 years old, and that was on 2 instances in 25 and in 26. Camardo was known to the victims, the office said, and the crimes occurred at a location in Amherst. Camardo faces 6 to 8 years in prison and is being held without bail. He will be sentenced September the 10th. The Amherst Police Department disseminated a brief news release that also mentioned the charges against Camardo. Mr. Camardo has taken full and complete responsibility for his actions, and he greatly regrets the harm he has caused, said Barry N. Covert, the attorney representing Camardo. The Chapel, a non-denominational Christian church, has 4 locations in western New York, with sites in Gettsville, Lockport, Niagara Falls, and Cheektowaga. The chapel's lead pastor, Jerry Gillis, sent a message Monday afternoon to the church community. In our conversations with the district attorney's office, they confirmed to us that we have no basis for concern regarding his conduct with minors through any ministry or venue of the chapel at this time, Gillis said. We are also sorry that as a local church family you must bear this news, he continued. It is unsettling and certainly can feel like a violation of trust. It's not fair to be residually hurt and even ashamed due to events that you had no part in. Gillis emphasized the chapel's leadership and congregation has been active in helping the rest of Camardo's family. And I lost my place. Where'd it go? Oh, there we go. We are devastated by these developments and are continuing to spend our time and energy actively caring for the members of the Camardo family, both materially and spiritually, Gillis wrote. The Buffalo News reached out to the chapel for further comment, and Executive Pastor John Cook directed the news to the email sent to the church community. Camardo also spent time as a youth soccer coach, according to a 2022 listing of youth coaches in the Western New York Junior Soccer League. Camardo coached an under-13 girls team called the Amherst Hawks. Amherst Soccer Association does not list its coaches on its website, and Camardo is not found in any of the club's social media postings since 2023. The news could not reach the club's president for comment before publication time. Camardo was lead pastor in 2021 during a conflict involving Wayne Aram, a chapel employee for about 10 years in the 1990s and president of the Circle C Ranch Youth Camp in Delavan. Complaints about Aram's conduct led to an independent investigation in 2020 pursued by the chapel, which found 21 women who alleged inappropriate touching by Aram in both his chapel and Circle C capacities. The chapel officially cut ties with Circle C in fall of 2020. Aram and the camp's board of trustees, however, denied the allegations, and in 2021, Aram filed a $2.5 million defamation lawsuit against Camardo, whom Circle C leadership believed was just trying to take over the camp for the chapel. Camardo denied those claims, and the lawsuit was dismissed in October of 2022, according to a USA Today report.
Well, and so I'm going to go to sports briefly. Want to talk about Sabres, Peyton Krebs, who has agreed to a new contract with the Buffalo Sabres, and his return further reinforces a brimming position even after the departure of right wing Alex Tuch. The Sabres announced Monday that Krebs, a forward, has agreed to a 4-year contract extension with an average annual value of $4.5 million. Krebs and the Sabres avoided salary arbitration by agreeing to the new contract terms as he prepared for his 7th NHL season. Krebs became a restricted free agent on the 1st of July after his 2-year contract with an AAV of $1.45 million expired on the 30th of June. Krebs was one of 15 players who filed for salary arbitration, according to the NHL Players Association. Puckpedia.com reported Sunday night that Krebs' hearing with an independent arbitrator was originally scheduled for the 1st of August. His new contract runs through the 29-30 season, and he will earn $3 million in salary plus a $2 million signing bonus in the first 2 years, and then earn $4 million in salary in the final 2 years. And he has a 7-team no-trade clause in 28-29 and 29 and 30.
Okay. Did you know the fear factor doesn't exist for France?
Ooh.
France is not afraid of Spain going into their World Cup semifinal on Tuesday, defender Ibrahima Konate said on Sunday. But the team is conscious of its opponent's quality and near-perfect backline. Spain has conceded only 1 goal in the entire tournament to reach the last 4 in search of a second World Cup title.
That's impressive.
France winners in 2018 and finalists 4 years ago know Spain very well, having lost to its rival in the Euro 2024, last 4, and also in last year's Nations League semifinals. You cannot fear anyone, France center back Konate told a press conference. We will now prepare as best as possible and hope the result in the end will favor us. Spain are exceptional team with a lot of individual quality. So we won't be focusing on just one player, even though Lamine Yamal is a great player, said Konate, who had a brief substitute appearance in the win over Norway in their final group match. Dayot Upamecano and William Saliba have been France's starting center backs as the tournament favorites eye their 5th World Cup final. The French have reached 4 of the last 7 World Cup finals. Should they take part in the July 19th showdown in New York, they will sustain the comparison with West Germany, arguably the ultimate tournament nation with 4 finals between 1974 and 1990. But Konate said the French were not wasting any thoughts on what might be. We are staying humble. We won't fall into that trap, he said. France is 1 victory from extending one of the most extraordinary eras of World Cup dominance, with a 3rd successful final and a 5th appearance in the showpiece match in 8 tournaments, within reach when it faces Spain Tuesday. To get there, Didier Deschamps' side must overcome the team that has repeatedly blocked its path in recent years, with a defense that has been breached only once at this tournament. This time, Les Bleus arrive with the competition's 2 most prolific forwards, Kylian Mbappé on 8 goals, and Ousmane Dembele on 5, and a much more balanced team. There is considerable continuity between the teams who met in Munich 2 years ago, when Spain recovered from Randal Colomouani's early header to win 2-1 with goals from Lamine Yamal and Dani Olmo. 7 of the players who started for France that night could again be in the lineup in Dallas, but the resemblance largely ends there. At the Euro 24 semifinal, France arrived as a team still searching for fluency. Mbappé had been hampered by the fractured nose he suffered in their opening game. Antoine Griezmann was struggling to impose himself, and the side had reached the last 4 despite failing to score freely from open play. In 2026, France will need to find a way to break down this World Cup's most effective backline, as well as contain as much as possible Lamine's runs down the wings. I would not say fear, but we are conscious of their quality, said fellow France center back Maxence Lacroix. They have won all their matches except a 0-0 draw against Cape Verde in the group. So we respect them. They have high-quality players, but we want to win. Top of the list is Spain winger Lamine, who has earned praise from his coach for keeping opponents' defenders busy as teammates use the spaces he creates. We will defend well, the best, LaCroix said. Lamine is a very good player, and he has shown he can hurt teams at this World Cup. We will do the work that is needed. Luis de la Fuente's side has retained the collective philosophy that carried Spain to the European title, using possession not merely to create chances, but to suffocate opponents and protect its own defense. Spain's record of 1 goal conceded underlies how rarely teams have been able to play through them, although Belgium showed during Spain's 2-1 quarterfinal win that it can be unsettled when opponents escape the initial press and attack the space behind their midfield. Deschamps will need to decide whether he wants to reinforce the midfield or remain faithful to the attacking structure that has made France the tournament's most feared side. Committing 4 attacking players would give Spain more to worry about, but could also leave France exposed if their press is bypassed. History is within reach. We are the only ones to have beaten them twice in a row, but this third match will be very difficult, De La Fuente said after the victory over Belgium. These are 2 very high-level teams who are going to face each other. France, however, has history within reach. It reached the World Cup final in 98, 06, 18, and 22, winning twice, and a victory in Dallas would send France into the 5th final in 8 tournaments. They would also make it the first nation since Brazil between 94 and 2002 to appear in 3 consecutive World Cup finals. That consistency has been built around Deschamps' ability to renew his team without sacrificing its competitive identity. The side that won in 2018 was founded on defensive solidity and ruthless transitions. The 22 finalists leaned heavily on Mbappé's brilliance. This version appears deeper, more adventurous, and less dependent on a single route to victory. Spain may be the only opponent capable of exposing any remaining flaws. It possesses the technical quality to deprive France of the ball and has repeatedly shown it can turn long spells of control into decisive bursts around the penalty area. Yet, France enters the meeting with more firepower, greater confidence, and a sense that its evolution has brought the team to a point where recent defeats no longer define their matchup. Good luck to both teams.
Good luck to them. Moving over to asking Eric. Dear Eric, like many women in perimenopause, when my hormones started getting out of whack, I gained about 25 pounds due to a sudden and uncontrollable hunger. Estrogen helps moderate ghrelin, the hunger hormone. When I finally started hormone replacement therapy, I got the constant hunger and other issues back under control and worked hard to return to my normal weight. People who see me now will often ask if I am on medication to lose weight. I know what they mean is GLP-1, so I don't want to say yes, but I also wouldn't have been able to stop my weight from ballooning without hormonal therapy, so the answer isn't really no. I also had to be diligent about diet and exercise to get my weight back down once the uncontrollable hunger went away, and I don't want to dismiss the hard work I had to do. What's a good way to answer this question without going into personal details with acquaintances? Signed, Perimenopause Questions. Dear question, that's a hell of a question for Eric. A good place to start is by asking them in return, why do you ask? This can help divert people who are just being nosy and clarify the intention of others. Some may be seeking your advice about GLP-1s, and so you can let them know that you don't have the expertise they're assuming. Others might be looking for a diet and exercise advice. You're under no obligation to say anything about your own medical care or your body. So while I understand the distinction you're making about hormone replacement therapy being a helpful medical intervention, its primary purpose is not weight loss. So if someone is asking you about weight loss drugs, it's fair to simply say no. If you feel compelled to elaborate, you can say there are a lot of factors that contributed to my weight gain and weight loss. But again, only if you want to. There's no shame in any of this, but no one is required to go into detail about their own body. Dear Eric, in the letter from Feeling Guilty, I could hear the voices of all my families. I'm a home hospice nurse, and anyone who has had to place a family member in a setting other than home feels this exact way. One option that I would recommend for FG to explore would be group homes in their area. A group home is a private home that is set up for people like the letter's writer mothers live in, where caregivers are there 24/7 to manage medications, cook, clean, assist with personal care, etc. The cost is usually a little less than an assisted living facility, and they are bound by the same licensure and care standards as any ALF. FG can find a list of these places from the local Aging Services Division or services like A Place for Mom. The homes work with all outside care providers like home health or hospice. The most important part of choosing a home is going and touring them. The vibe is very different and individual and important. Mom definitely needs to be in the tours so that she can get the feel of them. Be aware that most group homes have a significant population of seniors with dementia. It helps to know that going in because it can explain the behaviors that you will see there. They also do not have the same roster of activities for the residents, and this may be a factor for FG and their mom. Signed, a hospice nurse. Dear nurse, thank you for this very comprehensive recommendation. Dear Eric, feeling guilty with suffering with her mom's unhappiness in assisted living. Your advice to work with mom's care team and primary care doctor was totally correct. But I'd also spend some time at the facility getting to know the other residents to verify whether they are generally feeling happy or safe. Getting to know the care team is also truly helpful. You may learn that mom is putting on a show for the family and is fine with everyone else. Perhaps relocating mom to another facility would be prudent if she's truly missed. I'd also suggest that reframing her thoughts might be healthy for guilty. Making the hard decision is, unfortunately, a part of the role of a caregiver. Guilt kind of goes with the territory. She should give herself a hug, remind herself that she's doing what's best for mom, and learn to turn off the voices making her second guess everything. Signed, Caregiver Sympathy. Dear Sympathy, the suggestion of getting to know the facility is a good one. While the mother is grieving a loss of autonomy, it's important for the caregiving daughter to make sure that the care she's receiving is of the quality she expects.
Let's talk about hints from Heloise. Skipping overpriced hair treatments. Dear Heloise, years ago when I was growing up on an Iowa farm, my hair would dry out because I was outside so much of the time. We also had what people called hard water, which would dry out each and every strand of hair. Instead of buying an overpriced hot oil treatment, my mother would warm up some vegetable oil and use a disposable cotton pad to rub the oil on my scalp. Then she would comb the oil through my hair and cover it with a plastic shower cap. The oil and cap were left on while I was sleeping. In the morning, I shampooed my hair as always, making sure I had lathered and rinsed twice, and I didn't need to use a conditioner. It's an old-fashioned method, but it worked well on my hair as well as the hair of my 3 sisters. Maybe this will help some of your readers, just as many of your hints have always helped me. And that was from Gail in Iowa. No wasted water. Dear Heloise, I have a water container that I keep on the kitchen counter. All unused water goes into that container. Leftover water from drinking glasses or cooking, unused coffee maker water, dog bowl water, everything. I'm amazed by how much water now goes into my garden versus down the drain. And that was Mike C. in Manitou Springs, Colorado. Let's talk about plastic bag uses. Dear Heloise, I have to respectively disagree with a recent hint from Paul about using plastic grocery bags as trash bag liners. Living in windy Nebraska, loose trash in a bin would often become litter when the garbage gets emptied into the garbage truck or when the garbage bin blows over during a storm. I do try to minimize my use of plastic bags and only put full bags of trash in our bin, but must use full bags to prevent litter. EM in Nebraska. Dear EM, I turn a grocery bag inside out and I use them when I trim the caps from strawberries for a smoothie or when I peel a vegetable. If I throw out items from the refrigerator when cleaning the kitchen, they go in a plastic bag and I tie up the handles before tossing it in the trash. I don't really have too many plastic bags around the house because I use cloth bags for so many of my purchases. It causes less clutter in our landfills. And that was from Heloise. Boy Scout donations. Dear Heloise, a friend of mine told us that she's collecting plastic grocery bags for the local Boy Scout troop. Apparently, these bags are collected in order to make a park bench. I had no idea this was a thing.
Me either.
FYI, it takes 3,000 pounds of bags to make one of these benches. So check with your local Boy or Girl Scout organizations to see if they participate in something like this.
That is a lot of bags.
And finally, clean your eyeglasses. Here's a simple way to clean your eyeglasses. Take a spot of shaving cream, rub it on each side of the lens, rinse it off with hot water, dry the glasses with a soft towel, and you know what? They're like new.
I'm going to have to try that, although I don't have shaving cream. So, on this day in history, in 1789, a mob composed of revolutionary insurgents stormed the dismantled the Bastille, a medieval armory and prison in Paris, now known as Bastille Day. It was a flashpoint of the French Revolution. And in 1798, Congress passed the Sedition Act, which made it illegal for Americans to print, utter, or publish any false, scandalous, and malicious writing about the government, which was seen as a violation of the First Amendment right. It expired in 1801.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, July the 14th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekdays and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., and we rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Lori and
Lita.
Thank you for listening and have a great rest of your day.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Pam Clark, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from this week's supermarket ads on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Today, I'll be sharing ads from Aldi's, Dash's Markets, Market in the Square, Price Right Marketplace, and Tops Markets. I'm going to start off with Market in the Square, and they have